going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 303. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him... E, sitting here on a Wednesday. Beautiful. Austin, Texas. Got another home match coming up this weekend. I believe actually this is the Sunday night soccer match on Apple TV. St. Louis City coming to town. We also have a new player rumor to discuss, some listener questions, second team back in action this weekend, academy recap. So we'll talk about the Boy Factory. I'm a little less excited to talk about the nonsense this week, but we'll get to all of that. Before we do, I'll ask you, as I always do, how are you feeling, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited for this weekend. Obviously, I missed the Houston game. I'm excited to be back at Q2, see the homies, see the club. I don't like St. Louis. I never have since they came in the league. They killed poor Kip Keller, and we need to avenge him any chance we get here. So I'm super amped. Ready for this. Sometimes I love the Sunday games. Sometimes I don't. So we'll see how it goes here. But
okay,
as of late,
up in the air for you.
I still don't know. You know, sometimes like, oh, this is great. You know, it's a little earlier. It's like, yeah. Chilling. And then, 10 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, damn, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I got to work in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I think you're trying to maybe prove to the world today your fandom for Athletic Madrid there.
Love me some Athletic Madrid.
You got the kid on here, I believe, just equalized with a penalty.
They did.
match,
Unfortunately, the A also fell off of my Griezmann, so it just says Griezmann.
Okay.
But pulling for the boys here. I guess if I was a big fan, I would have told you, hey, I can't watch right now.
Right.
I can't record right now.
Yeah, instead, just watch it on the second screen there as we go through the rest of episode 303. So before we get into the rest of today's busy episode, want to remind you, as we always do, that you can support the show financially for free just by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. You can toggle on auto downloads. That'll support us in that manner going forward. You won't have to think about it again. You can rate and review the show if you want to go the extra mile. And if you are watching the show on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. That does help us grow the show. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. Of course, here on episode 303, like the video, hit the thumbs up, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. So we will start episode 303 with a congratulations to Uzuni, who is named to the team of the Matchday over the weekend. And if you're looking at the graphic here on the YouTube, all the way down there, small text in the right corner, is Uzuni on the bench. So congrats to Mirtu. I want to say, this is only our second team of the match day honor so far this season. I think it was Christian Ramirez with the game-winning goal back in week 2. And we know Owen Wolf led the team last year with these nominations here. And so maybe getting him back this weekend. So maybe we start seeing more of this as we go forward towards the World Cup break. But congratulations to Mirtu. Well-deserved, not just for the goal. Overall, guy's been working his ass off on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely, and he's been a super consistent factor. I think I want to say the last 4 or 5 games where he's been really engaged. He's been playing hard, which we always talk about, but he's been getting a lot of threatening chances. Obviously, that one shot off the post was just like, God, can this dude ever catch a fucking break like one time when he goes out there and plays, and then he gets a break off that little deflection. So super happy for him. I thought maybe we had Faku once on a team of the match, or match, whatever the fuck we're talking about.
Team of the match day.
But maybe I'm
I don't think
mistaken.
so, dude. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe he was on your team of the match day, helping you with some best ball scores. I don't know. But I mean, to your point about Mirtu and how well he's been playing, it's not just the eye test too. Like in the stats, he has 4 contributions over his last 4 league games. So in good. I mean, maybe the best form we've ever seen him in from the counting stats perspective.
For sure. And like the body language looks better. He looks a lot happier, obviously getting the goal at home, being able to embrace the crowd and everything. It's all positive stuff for him right now. And it feels like we're a bit of a long ways away from some of those really poor games that he had to start the season.
Well, I did also want to work in Mike's listener question here. And since we have multiple Mikes in the Patreon Discord, this is Verde Pirate Mike. They're Verdes Locos, as he is known. So Mike was asking us, now that we are 10 games in, who is the best signing of the offseason? Mike said his vote is for Joseph Rosales. And he said, granted, Facu has produced, right, 5 assists so far. Good for, I believe it was tied for 6th in the league, 6th or 7th. But he says also maybe not playing up to his DP standard yet. So Rosales was his answer. Do you have an answer to Mike's question? Who is the best signing of the offseason?
I mean, that's a really good question. Seen a lot of good things from almost all the guys that we brought in here, but I think I'm going Joe as well. Like I think I said last episode, like imagine where we would be without him. The ability to move him around, not only getting some counting stats, but his ability to defend, his ability to hold up his hold up game. And then on top of that, seeing some just fantastic kind of one-on-one moves to beat guys. I think he gives us a little bit of an edge as well. He's an aggressive player. I love his style, and I did not think that he was as good as he is when he was in Minnesota, but I am absolutely thrilled to have him here, and that versatility is just unmatched right now. He's been fantastic all season long, and I think I said, earlier in the year that I feel like he has been our best, most consistent player to start this season. I don't know if that'll continue with, hopefully who we're getting back and everything, but the dude's been a revelation for this club right now, so it's Joe for me.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to interpret Mike's question here as like in terms of best signing, like relative to the expectation. And if that was his intent in asking this question, then I'm with you guys on Rosales, right? Because we knew he was solid, but I guess I'm just kind of repeating what you said, but dude, the versatility, the way he appears to raise the floor of like any position he's been in so far, like that, maybe you could poo-poo the right wing minutes a little bit, but it's not like he killed us over there.
Not at
either. All. But I would just point out, who out of the signings this offseason has not been at least a passing grade so far? Because I guess you give an incomplete to Irvin Torres, right? Just hasn't had the opportunities yet. But John Bell, Jaden Nelson, Joseph Rosales, Facu Torres, Christian Ramirez. Of course, the team results have not been up to par so far, but I don't think it's been for lack of contributions or performance of any of those 5 guys. Again, relative to expectation, I think it was a really positive window from a player personnel perspective. Like we had that interpretation headed into the season, right, on paper. But now that you're 10 matches in again, I think all 5 of those guys, the 5 of the 6 signings that have seen significant minutes here, I think it's been great.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll point to a non-Pirate Mike Croniola there talking about Christian Ramirez and his impact thus far. And he's been so good on a supplemental and his veteran leadership. Again, I talked about how excited I was for him to get that start versus Houston, being able to embrace the moment. The guy's been great, and all those dudes have contributed in some way outside of, like you mentioned there, Irvin. So it was a great window. All of these dudes raised the floor. And, I think with Facu, right, I get some of the negativity around, his start to the season with the DP contract and everything, but the 5 assists, his ability to generate goals and great chances for this club off of set pieces has really raised the floor. And again, it's just been such an unlucky weird start to this season where you very, very easily could have won the Minnesota game if you're not down a man with Robbie Taylor, and you very easily could have won the Toronto game if you're not down Guilherme at that point in time. And we're talking about 4 points right there, and that slots you up into playoff position right now. So getting healthy right now, I want to see what Facu looks like when he has another distributor and creator like Owen out there. And then I really want to see what it looks like when you have Owen and then that huge target BV in the middle of the field there for him to just try to pick out with that left foot. So I think Facu's going to keep improving here. And as we get more healthy, I think that's going to raise his ability, because you have seen at times where they've been focused on him and they know where he is at all times. You get a little more help out there, I think it's really going to help him out. So all the guys have been great thus far. Jaden as well. I know I mentioned before I expected a little bit more out of him, but that was just because I was like, we're so hurt right now. We need somebody to play above the level that we've seen thus far. But other than that, he's been fantastic. And we know that he's been dealing with some issues with his body, and he's still kind of thugging it out and going out there and giving us production. So everyone has contributed in some way or another. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Been a great window.
I mean, you got 35 minutes, I think, of playing above the level from Jaden this last weekend before he just had, was forced off with the lower body issues again. So we appreciate Mike for the question. Couple other listener questions coming up later in this episode. But I think just because there's going to be some of this here in this next segment, we just need to go ahead and hit this.
Rumors, whispers, made up trades, consequences we never weighed. Logic's thin, the mic is hot. Let's pretend this means a lot. Taking shots from way downtown, hoping no one writes it down. Hot takes flying without hesitation. It's time for some reckless speculation.
Well, the calendar turns to May this weekend, and that means we are approaching the summer transfer window. So we have our first legitimate player rumor here coming from a familiar source here. Tomas Włodarczyk. It's my best go at that. I think that's roughly translated in Polish to English into Tom Bogert. Because this Włodarczyk is the same reporter who broke the Bukhari being sold news when we were on that live stream back in the fall. So this is a very credible source here saying that Austin FC has reached an agreement to sign 28-year-old Polish left-winger Przemysław Płacheta. And that I'm going to need Hudson to check me on that. I think that's it's definitely not the worst pronunciation attempt that we've ever made here in the North End. And I will say we are going to be referring to Przemysław as Shemmy because both his coach and the fans of Oxford United, I have seen them refer to him as that. So Shemmy is the nickname here for Płacheta, under contract until June with Oxford United in the EFL Championship. Shemmy is a 28-year-old winger / wingback, man, and mostly left-sided. He is left-footed, but he's played all over the place in his career. And I mentioned that Oxford about to get relegated, so I imagine that their wage bill probably shrinks a little bit when you get relegated. And certain players, especially if you're out of contract, maybe want to go find another league, another team that is at that same level, for both salary and from a competitive standpoint. So we can let some of Shemmy's highlights now as we go through the player's history a little bit here. It's been, I would say, an up and down road for it. Certainly not a linear progression here for Shemmy in his career. These highlights, I believe, are from his stint in Poland, which was like 6 years ago. A lot of the highlights I could find from his time with both Norwich City and Oxford, right? Spent time with Birmingham and Swansea in between that. Like those are like single game, like 30-second highlight clips. So this was the first like lengthy highlight tape that I found of them. So just know that if you're watching this on the YouTube, these highlights are from about 6 years ago. Some other background information about Shemmy. His older brother, Marcin, is an Olympic bobsledder, or was at the 2006 Olympics for Poland. And he was also a 4x100 meter European U23 sprint gold medalist back in 2001. And I say all of that to say it runs in the family. Shemmy is, as they sometimes say, fast as fuck, boy. Like, this guy, when he signed with Norwich in 2020, he was coming off of a season as the legitimately clocked as the fastest player in the Ekstraklasa there in Poland. Now, Poland, right, not a top 5 league, second and third divisions of the European leagues way more frequently than your average fan. He told me that he has, Shemmy rather, has been clocked at a faster on-pitch sprint speed than Kylian Mbappe. And now, the fact that we are signing this guy on a free, you may say, well, how is this guy, like Logan literally said, instantly becomes one of, if not the fastest player in Major League Soccer.
Damn.
Now, how did we get this guy on a free? There are other shortcomings, okay? So, like, I want to read some testimonials here as we can, I guess, dispense of the 6-year-old highlights. Everybody can, we'll drop some links to these articles, these highlights into the Patreon Discord later this evening. But I did some subterfuge on the Oxford United forums that I found, because here's the latest update on Shemmy. I know I'm jumping all over the place here for you, so stick with me. Płacheta is currently dealing with a hamstring injury, and this headline was making the rounds yesterday afternoon and this morning in various channels. The headline says, Płacheta set to miss the rest of the season with injury. He got injured 12 days ago. The championship season ends in 4 days. So, okay, it's a hamstring strain. Yeah. It does not seem like he is injured to the point where it's going to affect his availability for Austin in late July, when he would be first available, coming off that World Cup break to get registered and play matches here for Austin. But because of him, catching that hammy pull and being ruled out for the final few games for Oxford, and again, as they are about to get relegated, some of these comments here. This was from Sir Andy of Crosby.
Looking at that name and just thinking about making fun of fucking English town names. And then look at the sign and says Wallington. What is going on over there, man? East Hamburgshire.
So Sir Andy says, shame to end with such a whimper. I've been a fan of his. Yes, he's put in some stinkers and can be incredibly frustrating, but he's provided multiple big moments this season and last, many of which are my best memories of these 2 seasons. He'll go down as one of only 3 of the 2024 permanent signing cohort, which were along with 2 blokes by the name of Curry and Volks. He says Shemmy was the only one to have added significant value to this football club, and he should only really be judged against those credentials from when he signed, as a talented but inconsistent championship winger to a newly promoted club who needed a bit of quality and a spark at times. He has provided that. He was a good fit at the right time. We all move on with thanks. So that was Sir Andy of Crosby's take there. Now we move on to Bicester U here, who says, man, right? And these are guys, they're just reacting to the injury he picked up 2 weeks ago. He says, Shemmy is the epitome of the, quote, how can the defender know what he's going to do if he hasn't got a clue himself kind of player. And I never got as irritated at his limitations as I got excited at his moments of brilliance. I said fairly early on that he had rockets in his boots, but rocks in his head. If there was still room in his boots for a little bit of stardust. I don't think he'd been coached particularly well from an early age because he very often made the wrong decision, and he never ever just seemed to kick it past the fullback and run. It almost felt like that would be too easy for him and that he needed to give the fullback a chance. I often wondered if he was trying too hard to show he was more than just a speed merchant, when in reality, that's pretty much what he was. Farewell, dear Shemmy, and good luck in the future, unless it's against us. And one last one here, from Emilio. Emilio said, I think we'll remember Shemmy for longer than many wingers we've had in recent years. He was equally exciting and frustrating. Well, maybe not equally, but you knew something was going to happen when he got the ball. He wasn't boring, even if he was habitually monotonous. Get the ball, run, cut inside, blast it, repeat. Scored some screamers, made a few defenders shit their pants, but would have also been great at rugby conversions. Good luck, Cheddar. So again, I thought those were some. It seemed like the fans of Oxford had similar takes to what like Logan said and a couple other folks said, where it's just like, it's not a blow you away type of signing. But we don't necessarily, like, not all signings are going to be that. So I know I've been talking here probably for like 10 minutes straight. What are I know you started learning more about Shemmy here this afternoon on Wednesday. So what are your early takeaways from all this? Because it does seem like this is in the ilk of like a Dessler or a Buka, right? In the past, those guys that signed those pre-contracts, it seems like from what Larchik's reporting that this is a done deal.
Yeah. I mean, he's a reliable source for sure. Obviously, I'm incredibly excited about the speed aspect that he could be bringing to the team here. We've, with Jaden, we're able to get some of that back that we lost with the departure of Buka. Obviously, Jaden dealing with some knocks and dings and stuff like that. But having this dude potentially be a depth piece coming off the bench against tired legs sounds like a great idea to me. We've been burned in the past, getting a little bit too excited about these guys. See Basard Savovich. Yeah. But I watched some highlights as well. I watched a couple of goals he scored for Oxford, which is a much more recent highlight tape and everything like that. And it was one of those shots where I was just like, holy shit, that is really, really special. So seeing those moments, I like those takes. They seemed pretty level-headed and understanding exactly who this player was and not putting an expectation on him that was, created by the person who was writing whatever they were on whatever message board they were writing there. Yeah. So I thought that was nice and kind of refreshing, but that speed aspect, like we talked about with Buka, is just something that A, you can't teach, and B, you just can't fully account for if you're a defender. If the dude is just light years faster than you, that it's a bit of an advantage. So, I'm excited about this, and it as a depth piece, as you described him as, and as Logan described him as, I think is a good get. And then when you say it's on a free, I can't be too upset about it. And, push comes to shove, you're buying out Basard Savovich and slotting this dude in around the same salary. I don't know why you would be upset about that.
Yeah. And again, I do want to talk about, because that's clearly there has to be movement here of some sort. But looking at his transfer market page just for the positional history, I think you see the flexibility when you look at this page. Because again, you go back through 6, 7, 8 years of professional play. Do they nail down the exact position of every player in every match 100% of the time? Probably not. But here again, in his career, 78 appearances as a left winger, 35 as a left midfielder, 33 as a right midfielder, 29 as a right winger. And then multiple sources I read said that he could also play some wing back. He's got 8 starts at left back, 4 in the attacking midfield. But I do think we should expect more of wing back action and winger action from Shemmy. They said because he's left footed, when he's over there on the right, it's almost to me, this reads as he can back up Faku over there. Because he's a left-handed, left foot. He might be left-handed too. He's a left-footed guy that likes to cut in as that kind of inverted winger when he is over there on that right side. Also, when you go back through the all seasons link here on his transfer market page, you can see 12 appearances in the Premier League with Norwich back in 21-22. Now, I'm not making the argument that he is a Premier League quality player, but I think this would be our first player in our club's history that has Premier League appearances, if I'm not mistaken. There's not one that came to mind immediately. And clearly he is, right? He's been in the Championship for a number of years now, and you can see 114 appearances in the Championship, among other leagues that he, and external competitions that he's made stops in. But this was completely out of left field on Tuesday. And again, it's not doesn't profile as a DP. And if he came over on TAM, I would be upset because we have here this is not guaranteed to be 100% accurate, especially because the lack of transparency with salaries over there in Europe, because they don't have a salary cap, so it's even less important over there. But according to the sources that I found, He did sign a 1-year extension with Oxford coming into this current season. And the update on that was his annual salary, 353 euros, which I believe converts to a little north of 400K US. But if you're making like a guy who profiles like this, making less than 500K in MLS makes a lot of sense to me, again, on paper, because we're just talking about this from a roster build standpoint now. But I also think looking at how his salaries have decreased over the last 4 years, I think there's a non-zero chance, and this is pretty much why I hit the speculation drop, non-zero chance he would come over on a supplemental, which would be like a holy shit type of move from an efficiency standpoint when you're building an MLS roster. Again, I don't think that is the most likely outcome here, but I have a hard time seeing him coming, like Roto having to shell out more than $500,000 annually for this guy, just based on especially if his number one skill is that elite speed. 28 years old does not mean that's gone, but you're coming up to the typical age cliff for a guy who relies on elite speed. So again, I think like unless Roto did something that is very out of the ordinary for him in terms of building this roster, it seems like an efficient value add just from that standpoint alone.
For sure. And we still have some flexibility, right, with potentially John Bell and Ilya being on supplementals where you could slot him in for one of those spots. Yeah.
So, like, I think this means, right, well, and also I think we can look at his transfer history here, because the initial transfer from his Polish club to Norwich, if I can get that up here, back in 2020, this is like height of pandemic here in the summer. $3 million transfer, or 3 million euro, so a little bit more than that US, from Poland to Norwich City. Since then was loaned to Birmingham and then has gone through 2 additional free transfers, first to Swansea and then to Oxford United. So again, like, I don't think that like, all of those things are leading me to the conclusion I said a minute ago, that he could be supplemental. But no matter what, unless he's supplemental, that guarantees one of 2 things. Either outbound movement from the senior roster, or one of those guys like you mentioned, a John Bell, an Ilie Sanchez, is at 226K or below and can be bought down to the supplemental roster. And we should know that for sure within the next month, because that salary drop for the spring from the Players Association, I think the first few years that we were fans enough to care about looking at those numbers, it came out in April. Last year, it came out in May, which was the latest since we've been paying attention. So I would think we would see that here in early May once again. And that'll give us an answer if we have anybody on that senior roster that is eligible to be bought down. And I believe that Bell and Ilie are the only ones, because we know the salaries of everybody else as returners, or with their designations, right? Like you can't buy down Rosales or Danny because they're TAM guys, etc. But who, like, it's either buying one of those guys down or outbound movement. Since I think number one, and technically it could be both, because I think we're going, like, Shemmy's not going to be the only addition in the summer. I would be pretty surprised if that was the case. So who could potentially be going out? Like, do you have, Sabovic probably comes to mind for you first, right? And we do have that one buyout, as you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. Sabovic comes to mind first. I mean, maybe one of those left backs. You know, right now you got a bit of a logjam if you're fully healthy with Guilherme, Joe, and Kolmanich there. And then, you know, dark horse is you could have to potentially prepare for the departure of Owen. You know, that's a non-zero if you're looking at this roster, because there's not a whole lot of other guys that I would pinpoint being like, A, they have the interest, B, you're going to be able to work something out in regard to getting some return. So yeah, just going to A and B, but those are like the 3 that I would be looking at right now. I'm assuming he's going to take up an international, right?
Yeah, I would think so, but we're not hurting for those at all. Like, we have an open one now, and then the 2 that come back to us in July. And like, we're talking about a guy in Besard Sabovic who is taking up an international slot right now. So like, if you moved him, you'd have 4. And I also think we should add near to Uzuni's name, not as like a one-for-one Uzuni's out and Shemmy is in, of course not, but just like in terms of thinking about guys who could be on the move. Because like 2 months ago, he was almost out the door.
Yep, those are the most likely options, and he's on that list for sure.
So, and I also, like, you mentioned Owen Wolf. I'm glad you brought that up. Had that in my notes as well.
It's just, if you're looking at the roster, there's not a whole lot of options, and that is one option where it's like you're moving on from Owen, you're getting paid as much as you possibly can. I'm not saying it's likely or it's the most likely outcome here, and I think most people would want it to be the buyout of Sabo, free up that international, free up that senior slot, get off that contract, and then replace him with a much more viable player. Yeah. So, those are really the options for me. Maybe Danny, but we talked about that window kind of closing a little bit. Seems very rooted here in Austin. So, hey, come on now.
On brand. Okay.
Come on. So, man, those are the top options for me. And then obviously the left backs. I think one of those, I think Yerme does have value elsewhere. I think he's one of those guys that you actually could look at and be like, we're selling you on for a gain here. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm with you on the left backs. And again, like none of these guys are necessarily tied to a Shemmy acquisition. Just like saying who we should be prepared to move on from Owen every transfer window until he actually does. Yeah. Because it's coming at some point. And I'm with you on the left backs. And like Robert Taylor, man. And like, I guess for sure we should say, like, I do want to read, because Logan gave our Patreon members his breakdown, a very quick, kind of top line summary of Płacheta, but he said he's Bobby T 2.0, fast, tricky winger, spends most of the season injured. And again, like we saw the hamstring issue here. If we go back to his transfer market page, right, they have the injury history similar to those positional designations. You don't really know how accurate these are. But you see missed like almost a full season with what they called a shin bruise there. I imagine it was something a little bit more intense than just a bruise there, but multiple hamstring injuries, including the one that he's currently suffering from. And like, breaking news, fast guy hamstring injury, I'm not like super worried about that. But it's not, he doesn't have the cleanest bill of health that we've ever seen, here from a signing. So just wanted to highlight that as well.
I'm really excited to see the speed in person. If this is a done deal, he's coming over here. I just want to see what that looks like, because I remember watching Buka be like, oh my God, this dude's a blur. Yeah,
man. And so Logan also said he said played most recently for Oxford, who are bottom 5 in the championship in salaries. I would assume he would come in the 300K to 450K mark, right? So Logan also saying senior slot, the most likely outcome here from a roster build standpoint. He said this would be a pure depth piece, and I would not expect him to make significant contributions at all, but having more option wingers is always good news. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So anything else for you on this? Again, like the first not even, again, it is a rumor till the club announces it, but this just has all the makings of being a done deal here. And I wouldn't be surprised to get a Bogert tweet at some point between now and like mid-June, because he starts, as soon as the club sends in that paperwork, it seems like it circulates to Tommy Scoops pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm excited, man.
All right, well, let's move into the St. Louis City preview here, E. I am on the written preview at the northendpodcast.com here this week. And if you've been an Austin FC fan for multiple years here, you likely remember the flash in the pan that the expansion side was back in 2023. Like, and again, I'm not throwing stones here. We had our one flash in the pan season as well. And it was their first ever game in the league was at Q2 Stadium, the 2023 season opener, where you already mentioned they killed Kip Keller and, more importantly, beat Austin FC 3-2, starting the tailspin that was there in that season. They ended up the top seed in the Western Conference that year, but lost in the first round to 8th seed and geographical rival Sporting KC. And that was really the first that was the first season of the best of 3 format in the MLS playoffs, and that did nothing to dissuade the league from getting rid of the best of 3, that you have a 1 seed go down immediately. And it's just similar to how them beating us at the beginning of that year, we haven't looked back in terms of like a true victorious, positive season where you win more games than you lose, right? We were 500 last year in terms of your wins and losses. They've been on the same trajectory since being upset by Sporting, missed the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons, and it hasn't even been close.
Nope.
They fired their first head coach, Bradley Carnell, after 2024, right? Then he went to Philly and led them to a supporter shield the next year. Now you see him again. That's not all on the coach because the roster build is a problem really in both of his spots, but
yeah,
interesting pattern starting there. And then they fired their second head coach in the middle of his first season last year. Olaf Melberg, the lumberjack on the sidelines there, was out. So they also fired their sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel, who was a character for sure. I enjoyed listening to the couple interviews from Lutz that I was able to hear. So coming into this year, new sporting director, that's Corey Ray, who previously worked for Montreal, Toronto, and Columbus. So he's now the sporting director in St. Louis. Head coach, Yoann Demay, who was an assistant under Wilfried Nancy for both the 2023 MLS Cup win and the 2024 Leagues Cup title in Columbus. And before that was an assistant under Greg Vanney with the Galaxy. And also, Demay was the interim coach for FC Cincinnati twice. And through all that, he is just 35 years old. So what are we doing with our lives? This guy, head coach of our opponent here in MLS this weekend. You and I sitting in the TNEP offices talking about him here. Certainly an impressive resume for Coach Demay, although the results so far this season have left a lot to be desired.
And it's been such a weird kind of ride for this St. Louis team, right? They come in, they have the magical season, they take the league by storm, they secure that 1 seed, have this super unceremonious departure from the playoffs, get off to a bad start in that second season, get rid of Carnell after that. Then you experiment with Olaf, who was like playing a completely different, super defensive style. In that first year, you got peak seasons out of Leuven. You got peak season out of Klaus. Like you got guys playing. I mean, Jared Stroud was playing well for them at that time. It's just been odd with this team because they have a fantastic fan base, super supportive. And some of the decisions that they've made as of late, I think have been the wrong ones and maybe jumped the gun a little bit. But then you look at the roster now and like talking about peak seasons, you had peak Berkey that first season, and he is a long cry from what he once was, in my opinion, taking up a DP slot. And they only have 2 DPs, right? Or they have 3, but
they got Cordova in.
Yeah, okay. So Berkey taking up 1 there, and I just don't think he's worth that roster designation. So it's just been a weird one. Then obviously stuff going on with Leuven, with his family and everything, and he was the thing that made this team work with the style that they play. We know bringing a bunch of dudes from the Bundesliga 2 over here, getting them in, playing a very similar style, and he was just kind of the guy that held it all together. And like with him not being available consistently as of late, I think it's really hurt them.
Yeah, dude, he's a menace
when
he's fit and clear-headed, and I can't imagine how long it'll take until he gets to that point. But so players who left from last season, right? For those who were tuned in to St. Louis and how they did last year, says here in my notes, they traded Joao Klaus to the LA Galaxy. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Klaus was the club's first ever DP signing. He was their all-time leading scorer coming into this year. That has certainly not changed on the young season. Traded for $2.4 million in that preseason, right? He's on an expiring contract. So that was the Galaxy's attempt to fill that Ricky Pooch DP slot for this season. And I thought it was probably a good move on both sides because I don't think Klaus was going to be renewed here in St. Louis, certainly at a DP level going forward. So makes sense to me. And I'm always a fan of being able to move expiring contracts. Not something you see a ton in MLS, but you did hear this offseason with St. Louis. Two other names, Henry Kessler, right, the veteran center back.
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about him this year. He's in Charlotte now, left in free agency. And then Rasmus Alm, midfielder that struggled with injury really all 3 seasons, if I recall correctly, one of those original players for St. Louis. I think they had a pretty good, like, kind of adding some guys around the fringes. Daniel Edelman was acquired in a trade from Red Bull, $700K GAM and a sell-on fee there to bring in the young U.S. Youth International, right? Edelman was the captain for the U20s at the last U20 World Cup. Also brought Mamadou Fall back stateside, the Senegalese center back who went from LAFC on loan with Villarreal in 2022, came back to LAFC. They sold him to Barcelona for $2 million. Fall played with Barcelona's B team the last 2 years. Was also, I think, when he was with Villarreal, won La Liga app. The rest were La Liga 2. Fall only has 1 appearance for St. Louis so far this season. I believe he's been dealing with injury. But if he can ever get right, man, I think and you see him as Mbake Fall, probably, if you search for him. That's how he's listed on their senior roster release here. But Fall, man, I think he is maybe the highest upside defender that they have, and it might not even be close. 2 other defenders they added in the offseason. Rafael Santos, Brazilian left back, joined in free agency, spent last season with Colorado and Orlando. You can see him down there on a supplemental roster slot, and I believe has started, I want to say, either 8 of the 9 or all 9 games here for the team. Also, Dante Polvara, signed from Scottish side Aberdeen FC, who was originally a NYCFC Academy product. So when he came back stateside this offseason, they had to pay NYC $50K GAM for his right of first refusal. It's another little MLS quirk there for you. And he has mostly started as an outside center back in all 9 games so far this season. And so far this season, they've got a game in hand on us. 9 games played for St. Louis. Just 1 win, though, 3 draws and 5 losses. This is just one of the 2 teams below Austin FC in the Western Conference standings at present. Just 9 goals for, so 1 per game, and 16 against. They've been better at home so far this year. Home draw against Charlotte to open the season 1-1. Held Seattle to just 1 goal, but that was a 1-0 loss at home. They won 3-1 at home against the Revs, and then over the weekend, dropped points from a winning position. They lost 3-2 to San Jose. And I will note that San Jose, I believe, reeled off 3 goals, or maybe that was last night that San Jose did that. Cup. Yeah, 3 goals in 8 minutes again. Yeah. So again, we're not the only victims of late. And on the road, man, it's been pretty abysmal so far. 2-0 loss to San Diego, 2-0 loss to LAFC. They did pull a 1-1 road draw against NYC, and then Frisco, then a 4-1 road loss to Seattle. So they've got 2 points from their 5 road matches, and in those 5 matches, just 3 goals for, with 10 conceded. They also, though, we're talking about San Jose and their quick strike ability to just, open the floodgates. St. Louis showed a flash of that themselves, dude. They briefly led 2-1 on Saturday. They scored a goal at 50 minutes and 56 seconds on the clock, and then again at 52:29. And there's a goal celebration and a reset in there, dude. The goal graphic from Apple was still on the screen when they scored the second one. So, like, these guys can jump on you in a hurry. And it was Sergio Cordova, right, who was acquired, I believe, after the season already began. Sergio Cordova is that 3rd DP you see on the roster profile there. If you're watching on the YouTube, familiar name for longtime Austin fans, with St. Louis on loan from BSC Young Boys in Switzerland. 28-year-old striker. He had 52 appearances with the Whitecaps and Real Salt Lake earlier in his career, and scored both goals for RSL in that first ever playoff match at Q2 Stadium back in 2022. Had a brace in the first 15 minutes. So Cordova has shown his quality as a striker in this league before, been very inconsistent with his roles on all of these teams, but maybe finding a little bit of form. Was a nice opportunistic goal that he scored. And I think, like, I was listening to some St. Louis. Actually, I'll holler Flyover Footy because that's our believed brethren there in St. Louis.
There we go.
So Flyover Footy was talking about they would rather see Simon Betcher, who's been starting up top for St. Louis this year. Also former Whitecap. They've had Betcher up top and Cordova out on I believe the left wing. And Flyover was saying, we'd like to see that switch. Put Cordova up top as the target man and make Betcher run out on the wings. So I would like to see the opposite of that.
I mean, Cordova's like 6'2", right?
He's big, yeah.
Yeah, he's a big guy. I remember him obviously from RSL. I was actually randomly watching highlights the other night, and I saw his goal and then the subsequent comeback and everything. The guy for them is Hartel, though. He makes it all go. He is absolutely their most dangerous player. He has a knack for scoring. I believe he scored when we met up with this team in the preseason, and we were pretty disappointed with that showing from Austin because looking at this roster profile for St. Louis, they're just super limited. This is not a very talented team, and I think you can see that from where they sit on the table, as well as only having 9 goals, second worst in the league right now. They don't generate a ton of good looks, but Hartel is the guy who generates most of them. I'm happy to see that they are without Pompeo anymore. That is fantastic news because he was always a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe he did his Achilles in the early parts of the season. Yeah, it was either that or ACL, but it was a season-ending injury. So yeah, that's certainly a bummer. But it does help us because Pompeo was always a thorn in our side.
Yeah,
even if he wasn't, the top line player for St. Louis. With Jan Hartel, nothing else to add. He's the guy to look out for. I mean, I would go back to Edward Leuven because Leuven has and I think we maybe kind of skirted around this earlier, but like the last 2 years has been dealing with his late wife who had brain cancer, and she unfortunately passed earlier this year. So he has worked his way back to game fitness. He's appeared twice off the bench for the first team, very limited minutes at the MLS level so far, but did play a full half for the second team 2 or 3 weeks ago. So man, for my money, when he's ready to go and play starters level minutes for this team, he might be the best player on this team.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the best TAM players in MLS, because you go back to like him having that magical season in 23, being the engine of that roster. That was 6 goals and 15 assists that year. And he actually did in his first appearance for the first team this season 2 weeks ago, did score. That game was already out of hand, but got to score in his return there. So an emotional goal for Leuven. And dude, like for the hopes of our favorite team this weekend, I'm hoping he's going to be in that 5 to 10 minute role again and not being able to like come in at the half or something, which I think from a fitness standpoint, he's more than ready to do.
I think I'm preparing for that, and he's a guy that you really, really have to account for. I mean, he's on the short list of really high quality defensive mids in this league.
And his set pieces too.
His set pieces are great. He's got a rocket of a foot, but he's also a fantastic defender and one of the more physically kind of imposing players from in the league right now. I remember seeing this team early on. I can't remember which year it was, but being just like kind of amazed with their size and the way that their players looked. I know they got one dude who's an absolute giant back there. I think 6'4", kind of center back. I think you might have talked about him a little bit, but Leuven's a really good player, man. And I'm expecting at least a half from him, a half from him. And that's going to change the game, in my opinion, because he's just going to really raise the floor. He gets other people involved, and he's just a really solid, steady presence in that midfield for this team. You see how they like to line up. They need a lot out of that midfield in order to connect that back line and that front line, that attacking, get the ball up to Cordova and Hartel. So Leuven is a guy who could change the game and something you're definitely going to have to account for when he, I think, inevitably seems time in this matchup.
Yeah, and usually as we flip over to what they ran against San Jose on Saturday, you're going to see this 3-4-3 more often than not from this team, right? They've really, I think, to my recollection, with all 3 coaches, have played with wingbacks more often than not in St. Louis. Also, like looking at their U22s, like this is still a roster in flux and a roster under construction. Like they haven't gotten much of anything out of their 3 U22s this year. Sungbin Jong, right, came over last season from Minnesota, just 156 minutes for him this year. Falu Fall has not played, right? They got two Falls on the back line. Yeah, Falu Fall is the really big one.
Yeah.
And Mbake Fall big in his own right. And Jake Girdwood-Reich, who I think made some appearances for this team last year. He's on loan back in his native Australia here through the summer, so we will not see him. You already brought up Berkey, right? I believe the only DP goalkeeper in the league. And dude, like per the ASA metrics, and I know we like poo-poo their XG model a little bit because it doesn't make much sense to us to like include block shots in that, but all things are equal in that model. When you just look at their rankings, Berkey is the 6th worst shot stopper in MLS through the first quarter plus of the season. So stats backing up what you said earlier about him falling off a little bit from because he was
like number one.
For 2 years. When they first came into the league, he's allowed 16 goals on just 13.03 expected goals against. The team as a whole, just 27th in goals per game, 11th in average possession. So this team does want to possess the ball. Some of that also probably a factor of them being behind in the majority of their games so far. 27th in goals per game, as I mentioned, matches up with their 26th in the league in expected goals, but they are 6th best in expected goals against. So their defense on paper has been more solidified. And I think that makes some sense given, I think all of those additions I read off outside of the Cordova loan were all defensive guys. So 26th in big chances created, 28th in accurate long balls per match, but 10th in accurate passes. So this is not a team that's trying to beat you over the top with speed, but they have won the 3rd most corner kicks in the league. So they are hanging out in the opponent's final third. And I think we can expect some high press when they do turn it over because they're 10th in the league in possession, one in that final third. I think that's about all I have to say about this team. They do play Open Cup tonight. So that's not a huge factor because it is a Sunday match. But round of 16 now, I would expect St. Louis to have a similar mindset as we did here in Austin, where this is the easiest path to a trophy for a team that really doesn't have MLS Cup expectations this season. So I would think we see a pretty full St. Louis lineup against Chicago tonight, and I'm certainly not complaining about that. No matter how many, 3 days, 4 days, it's better for them to be running guys out there for, let's hope this goes the full 2 hours.
Absolutely. And maybe you get a Leuven some minutes here tonight, and that prevents them from getting more on Sunday. Just bring up quickly the set piece action, the corner pieces. The corners there, they have top 3 most corners this season, but only 2 set piece goals all year. And then that's kind of what scares me about Leuven. You put him on those corners and more set pieces, it probably looks a little better, but this game is all about us. This is all about Austin. This St. Louis team is not as talented as Austin, even with the injuries that we're dealing with. And we've been looking for some consistency this season. You have that high-quality win over Houston last week. You got to follow it up with another win here at home, just like Brad talked about 2 weeks ago, where it was like we're looking for 9 points from these next 3 home matchups. And this St. Louis team is definitely a team you got to get 3 off of here if you want to start working your way back up to that playoff line before the World Cup break. So it's all about us. It's all about the players I think we're getting back and how we're going to look.
When talking about us, you don't post this if you're not playing on Sunday. Brandon Vasquez is going to make his return. His appointment, of course, final appointment with the doctors, is today on Wednesday, but the club posting the Brandon Vasquez Superman silhouette on Tuesday. So again, it would have to be something that occurs between now and Sunday to hold him out of this one, at least from being available off the bench. And coach gave us some really great insight. And again, I'm sure way more forthcoming now that the plan is to play these guys this weekend. It sounds like, and the club actually posted, before they posted the full presser for me to view on the website, they went ahead and cut the clip of Nico talking about BV, Owen, and Danny all being, I don't think he said the word probable, but like all indications are that as long as those guys don't tweak anything here this week, that you could have all 3 coming back and being available off the bench this weekend. He said that Robert Taylor did not practice, got an injection in his knee. So again, that just makes me think even more that he's not going to play this weekend. But I think, right, probably getting a shot to try to play next weekend on the road at a Minnesota or something like that. I'd be shocked if he was active this weekend. And then just non-contact practice for Jaden and for Guilherme, which makes some sense, especially with the extra day to your cadence this week, not playing until Sunday. That all makes sense to me, but oh, does it feel good? Again, like I told you, I was going to lean into that positivity, and Nico is doing nothing to slow me down in that sense here this week. So my excitement levels are about as high as they've been all season coming into the queue on Sunday. Just being able to see even a glimpse of these guys out there in an Austin uniform on the pitch at Q2. We are just so damn close to potentially, a knock on wood, we could get to full health before the World Cup break.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're right there on the cusp. I agree. You definitely don't post this if this dude is not ready to go. And then bringing Owen and Danny potentially back into the fold. This is about as exciting as it's been all season for this club right now. I'm just so ready for that standing ovation that BV is going to get when he trots out there. I don't know what time, maybe like 60th minute, maybe half. What do you think?
That feels like a lot to me. I would say 70th or later. Yeah,
okay.
I would say I think they're going to ease him in.
Okay, that's fair. Still looking forward to it.
I would take more. Let it be known. I would take as much as he can possibly go, but I think you get 15 to 20.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the first appearances all season from BV and Owen, that's just going to add some energy and juice to the entire stadium and the team. And then you add into the fact that they're probably our two best players. Super, super excited about this upcoming game here, man.
So we do have, and I want to say this is this Patreon member's first listener question of the year. We've got a famous lawyer in there. Jerry Callow has joined us in the Patreon. And so Jerry was asking us, when he returns to a starting role, who does Owen take the most minutes from? Or who are our starting midfield and strikers? So I do not have, one of those handy lineup formations created for this one. But I think when you're fully healthy, if we can remember back to our expectations in the preseason, where like you have legitimate, tough decisions on how to align who gets, because you have more than 11 guys who on paper are like starting caliber guys in MLS, right? Like you become fully healthy and you create a log jam. I know Jerry didn't ask about the back line, but log jam at left back.
Yep.
Right. Log jam in the midfield to a point, because if you're going to get all of your best attacking players on the field, your two DP forwards are in there.
Yep.
Vaku is in there. Owen is in there. Danny, you would think, is in there.
Jaden.
Ilie is the captain. So you say Jaden, I say Ilie. That's too many guys.
Yep.
So one guy out of that group, assuming you go one of Guilherme, Joe at left back, two center backs and Dessler.
Yeah.
One of those guys is an odd man out. And I don't, that's not a problem for me. Like again, we go back to what we were saying in the preseason. Then it's on the coaching staff to make sure that they're able to align the team the best way they see fit to approach the opponent each week. And also that depth is what we need for, I think it's 10 matches, including the Leagues Cup group stage games in like the first 38 days that we're back from the World Cup. Like, we need this type of depth. We need more than 11 starting caliber players to be a good MLS roster. So I guess getting back to Jerry's question, who does Owen take the most minutes from? I think it's Jaden. But I don't think for me, there is not a clear answer, because I think the actual answer is it's matchup based. And and again, like, things will shift because we're not going to have a clean injury report for the entire season. Like, we don't now, and we will probably never get there fully. But do you have an answer that jumps off to you of like, this guy's out of the lineup if we're fully healthy?
I mean, I could see the Jaden thing, particularly with this run up to World Cup, where we're trying to balance his health for the World Cup and potentially playing with Canada, as well as getting production out of him for regular season games. So I could definitely see Owen eating some minutes there. I think ultimately it means you'll just never have to see Basar Savovich again. I just think that means he's dropping down to 0 minutes going forward here because he talked about with the health of Owen, now you can slot Joe back into that left back. If required, you can put Joe back into that midfield, get Guilherme in there and work off of that, and then just eliminate the entire need for any Sabo minutes. But yeah, it is a good problem to have once we hopefully get fully healthy here. But Owen's got to be out there. We've talked about it all season. Every fan has talked about getting some sort of chance creator, some sort of attacking mid that can push the ball for us. And Owen does that exceptionally well right now. So I'm super excited to see all these guys, man. And then we talked about, Danny, obviously a higher quality player than Ilya. Ilya just bringing those intangibles to the team, the steadiness, the leadership, the ability to talk to the referees, the ability to keep us structured. He's just better than Danny right now. And I think that's obviously has to do with a lot of the experience that he's had his tenure here in this league. So I do agree. I think it's matchup based, and that's going to allow us to be a bit more flexible and approach these games with some looks that we haven't seen this so far this season with the guys that we've had hurt.
Yeah, so I think if I'm going off the top of my head here, everybody's healthy and available to you. How do you align this team and who are the starters? Stuver and net, don't think we have an argument there. I'm Rosales over Guilherme at left back if it's a 4-back, right?
I'll kill you.
Okay, well, Heinz Ike is spot talk. I'm going to be killed twice now for calling you Klaus and for saying bench Biru. So 2 normal center backs there, Dessler. And I think the way he has played as that second forward type of role, again, it has to be BV and Uzuni up top. In that formation, no more Uzuni on the left wing, right? It just hasn't. We have not seen that work, whereas we've seen him in this kind of new, more central role, right? Play a lot better on the offensive side. So 4-4-2 for me. And I think you have to have Ilya in there for the reasons you mentioned. Until somebody else can provide that, or at least 75-80% of that, you just when he's ready to start games, he has to start and play 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So him and Danny midfield, I think it's Owen left wing in that midfield 4 and Faku on the right with the 2 DP forwards up top is how I would align it right now. And again, that's based on just your average opponent, right? I would expect tweaks to the formation, to the player personnel in these lineups, almost every game if you're fully healthy, because if this roster is fully healthy, you have the flexibility to put a Guilherme Biru, a Jaden Nelson, a Dubersarski, right? I don't think he's not a black hole out there, far from it. And if we're looking ahead, to be able to imagine bringing both Jaden and Shemmy on that type of speed at the end of a match. Imagine starting one of them and bringing the other one in so you get 90 minutes of that elite level speed here. Yeah, man. If this team gets fully healthy, it's an exciting prospect.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how lovely it would be to have this level of depth and still be an Open Cup right now, and managing both of those, just managing the regular season with that, it would be great. But it is what it is. We're out of that. You squandered it. But yeah, I think I'm there with your generalized starting 11, and that sounds like a good team to me.
Yeah. Well, one other note I had here is that Austin is one of 11 teams that have not been awarded a penalty kick this season. I'm not complaining in that aspect. I think I want to say it's Mike Cragnola who I've heard kind of say this time and time again is to get a penalty, you have to be dribbling in the box or doing something in the box. And we don't do that a ton. But I was kind of surprised that it was that many teams that have not been awarded a penalty yet. 11 without one. And there are 10 teams that have at least 2. 3 teams have won 4 penalties. And how rich.
Yeah, must be nice.
We have one more listener question here, before we get our score predictions in. And it is from our buddy Aries, who says, with 5 games left until the break, how many points would you feel comfortable about the team having, and how few would have you super concerned coming back from the break? He said for him personally, he thinks 6 is the absolute minimum for us to remain in the hunt. So he says, you got to win those 2 remaining home games, which I agree. He says anything less would have me alarmed, and 8 or above would have me feeling comfortable heading into the break. I I think I align completely with Ari's there. Because I think we've said it before, right? You have to win these home games, especially considering the opponents. Like, my lever is still pulled here this weekend. This is a must win for this team to continue to try to turn the narrative around on this team, both within the fan base and on the national scale. You got leg one out of the way with Houston last week. St. Louis and Sporting KC are lesser teams than you, even with the absences we've had. And then can you find a point, road Minnesota, road San Diego, and a point Sporting KC? Bare minimum for me. I'm with Ari's. 8 makes me feel comfortable, but dude, I'm not shocked. I think you can get 12 here. And that's very lofty considering what we've seen from this team this season. But getting the win last week, a easier strength of schedule headed into the break. That's not up for debate, whether it's how you feel about these teams to the eye test or looking at the standings. This is a much easier stretch coming up. With the guys we're getting back, can you win 4 of the, like San Diego, reeling. Minnesota, they're not as good as they were last year. That's more of an eye test thing for me. But those 2 home matches, and then you get St. Louis again away, which should be a winnable game for you. So I think the ceiling here for me is 12. Obviously 15 available. But I think Ari's has it nailed down in terms of my outlook on it as well. 6 is the bare fucking minimum, and 8 I think is probably the most likely outcome.
I think you guys are a little too low. My bare minimum is 10.
Okay.
You have to beat St. Louis at home, non-negotiable.
Yeah, sure.
You have to beat Sporting KC at home, non-negotiable.
So 6.
You have to beat St. Louis on the road, non-negotiable. Okay. It's the game
Okay.
before the World Cup break. You should be fully healthy. You should be able to throw caution to the wind as well and go get that game. Because if you don't win those games, you're talking about me being like, oh shit, we're in trouble. That means to me that you're not a good team. Because if you can't beat those 2 clubs, you're just not a good team. And I don't care where it is. You know what I mean? I know St. Louis is a tough place to play, and we didn't talk about the all-time record between these 2 teams. But, yeah, they have owned us. 1 win, 1 draw, 4 losses. They hung 6 on us one time in that first season that they had as well. But I just think it's 10 is minimum, because if you're getting healthy now, this is a team that is just above St. Louis and Sporting KC. And then I think you can find a way to get a point off of Minnesota or San Diego. So I'm at 10 minimum for them. Okay,
but you're not feeling comfortable, just to use Ari's terminology there. You're not feeling comfortable with 9? So you'd be sitting on 19 points through 15 games then.
If it was win St. Louis, win Sporting, win St. Louis, I'd be comfortable with that, because that just proves to me that you're not in that tier of teams.
Yeah. You're not spoon contender. Which this team is not, but
is not and should not be. So given our spend, given the players getting back in, the health of this team, but this team just also this team needs wins for confidence level, for the fan base, for the vibes and all of that. Like you talked about with San Diego reeling right now. Minnesota, I know, is sitting in 5th, but they have a -3 goal differential. I haven't checked to see if they got blown out in some game or not. I can't really remember, but 11 goals for, 14 conceded. They're not as good as they were last year. Another difficult place to play, but it's 10 for me. You see a couple other teams here with games in hand. You got to start working your way up this table a little bit here. And you're just better than St. Louis and Sporting.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you have anything else to add here, man. How much is Austin FC winning by on Sunday?
I'm gonna go 3-1.
Okay.
I think obviously St. Louis playing tonight, they're going to have some decisions to be made. They're not a very deep and talented team. I do think that they'll try to muck it up a little bit when they come to play on Sunday. But if you can get that first goal and kind of open this thing up, I think you can get some contributions out of the guys we expect to be coming off the bench in the second half, who are super high quality players. And we need this for the vibes and a way to continue to build this positive momentum that you started here with Houston.
Well, I was sitting on a 2-1 for the last couple of days in my head, but I think thinking about it, the last time we scored 3 goals at home was August, that San Jose match that we mentioned, right? Going back, that was the last time we had that 2-goal lead. Also the last time we scored 3 goals at home. So it will be the month of May come Sunday. So that 3-goal baby's been brewing for 9 months now, Ian. It's going to come out here on Sunday. I will also go 3-1 with you. And for the second straight week, we will be in lockstep on our game prediction here. So hopefully we get a similar outcome where the result is even better than we predicted. So 3-1 victory for both of us. And don't care how you get it done, boys. Just got to go back-to-back with 3 points.
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's Lost Business Day.
Last business day here on episode 303 of the North End Podcast. The second team back in action this weekend on the road, Choctaw Stadium, taking on in-state rival North Texas SC. Of course, that is FC Dallas's next pro affiliate here. All-time Austin FC 3 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses against North Texas. And of course, these teams already met this season, but North Texas so far this year, 13 goals for, 12 against, so sitting on 11 points through their 8 matches rather. That's good for 5th in the West, as you can see on the screen here, but most teams in the West have a game or 2 in hand on North Texas. This is only their 3rd home match of the season. They've got a win and a draw with a PK win in those 2 home matches in 2026. They're led in scoring by their number 10. That's Edward Neese. He's got 6 goals and an assist. Also have 4 goals and an assist from number 11, Nathaniel James. They are still captained by homegrown center back Slade Starnes, wearing number 54 there in the middle of their back line. The other guy who started all 8 games for this club is number 18, defensive mid/defender. That's Timothy Ospino, wearing the number 18. Number 16, Nicholas Simmons, who we talked about in the preview before the first matchup of these teams this season, as that number 3 pick in this year's draft, right? Generation Adidas player. He's been up with their first team since then, so I don't think we will see Simmons, but if you see him on the lineup card here on Saturday night, should have mentioned this game Saturday, 7 p.m. up there at Choctaw. So with the first team playing on Sunday, can catch this match if you're hanging out on a Saturday night. Austin, back on March 15th, did win that first meeting of the year 1-0 on the back of a Jacobaro goal in the 38th. Red card to Josh Torquato. It's another one of those first-team homegrowns with North Texas. Red card to Torquato in the 58th helped Austin close things out relatively easily in that game. Last time we saw our boys, a couple weeks ago, it was winning the PK shootout on the road over Ventura County, right? The team created 6 big chances on that one, but only put away the 1 goal. And if we're expecting to see the first team put 3 guys back into the Matchday 20, I think we should see Jorge, Irvin, and Micah down here with the second team, or up in DFW with the second team. And of course, we would love to see all 3 of those guys start, but I think a little bit more competitive for Irvin and certainly Micah in terms of getting that start right now. Jorge appears to be set and forget in the starting lineup, and rightfully so, right? What's the status of Charlie? Right, Farah in that dislocated shoulder. Certainly haven't been down on Eric Lauta at all. If anything, I think he's made a case for there to actually be a goalkeeper battle potentially with his performance in the last 2 shootouts. I think 4, maybe 5 stops in those 2 shootouts. But those are my questions from a lineup perspective. But we know this is a deep team, especially in the midfield and the attack. So I'm ready for anything here lineup wise. Anything for you on the second team in this Copita Tejas matchup this weekend?
The team has been really generating a ton of good looks, getting a lot of shots off as of late. And, that's been without largely the help of Jorge and Irvin and stuff like that. So I do think you have some interesting lineup choices because this offense is really humming right now. I know we're sitting on 8 goals, but the chances being created, the amount of shots being created has been awesome to see. Obviously, with the Dynamo generating 20-plus shots versus them, a club that had only given up 1 goal or 0 goals up until the point that they played us, was pretty impressive. So I do think you have some questions that you're going to have to answer with who you're going to start here, but I would love to see a combination of Irvin, Micah, and Jorge starting. I think for maybe only the second time this season, all three guys potentially getting the start, or maybe the first.
It might be the first. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back and clocked that yet, but we know Mike has been in and out of that lineup. And of course, Jorge and Irvin have been with the first team plenty so far this season. But FCito unbeaten in their last 5 after dropping the season opener here. So looking to extend that streak to 6 matches. Unless you have anything else to add here, how much is Austin FC 2 winning by on Saturday night?
I'm going to go 2-0. Again, I think this team is generating a lot of good looks. We'll see what's up with Charlie, but I do agree that Lauta has been fine in his stead.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 victory here. I think, North Texas has proven to be able to score goals. There's always a chance that a guy like Simmons comes down and makes them even more threatening, right, as they're at home this weekend. But I think this Austin FC 2 team, infused with those 3 guys coming back from first team duty, I think you start to put more of those chances away. So I've got a 2-1 here. Look, man, we don't care how you get it done, boys, especially in a Texas rivalry match. Got to bring us back 3 points.
And if we could have essentially a boy factory.
The Boy Factory, hard work in the first team quality. Today's academy, can't you see? Tomorrow's Austin FC.
Nobody clip Boy Factory and use that.
Boy Factory here, E. On episode 303, we talked about at the end of Sunday's episode that the Academy boys were in the MLS Next Flex tournament over the last weekend, which I believe is the way they finalized the final playoff spots for the MLS Next Cup playoffs. So, to qualify for Next Cup, the Academy teams had to come through the MLS Next Flex, a competition where academies often compete against older age groups as part of their development pathway. So you look, the U19s finished the top of their group and earned qualification after 3 results: a 1-0 win over Soccer's FC Chicago, a 5-0 win against Southern Soccer Academy, an EA 1-0 win over Montreal. And look who it was, and look at this play by Mo Badawia. Again, tied late on against Montreal. Mo sheds 2 defenders, then a third, another spin, and a left-footed shot, curls it in the upper corner there. I mean, that is, I think you mentioned to me when I sent this to you, like, you look at the demeanor of these Montreal Academy players when that goal goes in. Helpless.
Oh, yeah. He made all those defenders look pretty helpless. That's awesome to see, man.
And this is why you see Mo Badawia with the second team and training with the first team, even to this point of the year. As Coach Nico said yesterday at media availability, I believe it was Hernan that asked him about the Academy's performance and Mo in particular, man. Mo certainly earning his place in the Boy Factory video drop there on the YouTube. Awesome goal, man. Congrats. Yeah. And congrats to the team as a whole, of course, clinching their place in the MLS Next Cup playoffs here. That'll be in Salt Lake City later in May. But we weren't done. The U17s also clinched their group. Woo. They went unbeaten through the flex here. 4-2 win over Albion SC, 2-1 win over Metro Oval Academy, and then closed group play with a 1-1 draw against Columbus, clinching advancement after a 5-3 penalty shootout win. So with both teams securing their spots, the Academy heads, like I said, to Salt Lake May 23rd through 31st, looking for an MLS Next Cup title, man. 2 shots, 2 bites at the apple. Can't wait for that.
Congrats, boys. Go out there, do us proud.
So we'll close out episode 303 with the nonsense here, in the week 10 picks. We cooled off a little bit, but nothing crazy, okay? The heater has been extinguished for the moment. The pick'em entry does not hit again. So we have not hit a pick'em entry since week 1. You're now negative 2.08 units on the pick'em entry, Z. And if I could grouse about one of the picks at the books here for a moment, I knew it was going to be a bad match day for us when we go in on the under Toronto hosting Atlanta, the early game that day. Scoreless at the half. Naturally, bang, 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 3 goals. It goes over in the first 20 minutes of the second half. For the entire game, dude, 1.24 XG total between these two teams, but we get 3 goals. So look, that's That's Grambling for you.
Yeah.
But that was just the sign to me that we're going to be holding on for dear life. So Austin FC plus 190 definitely helped us out a good bit in terms of those picks, and the goal scorers not terrible either, because Jaden Nelson plus 425 comes through for us. A goal contribution from Snyder Brunel at plus 280. Look, that's how deep in the fucking weeds I am. 80% of you listen to this don't even know who Snyder Brunel is, and that is maybe a number that's being nice. And we had a number of guys that didn't start, right? So voids our picks on options like Son, Forsberg, Gilavogi did not get the start. So at the end of the weekend, minus 3.05 units on the week at the books. So overall, still plus 2.35 units at the books. We're still feeling great about that after the start. Negative 2.08 at the pick'em. So just plus 0.27 units overall. If you have tailed everything this year and through 10 weeks, look, man, sitting at a positive number, we'll take it.
Yeah, a couple jelly beans for the old stash there.
Yeah, so we'll close it out with the best ball update, and great week for the North End on Saturday and Sunday, 65 points, but great weekend for almost everybody else too. We are Austin with a 67. They don't win the week though. That honor in week 10 goes to the Verde Pendant boys who take back third place. They were in a tie with Verde all day, headed into the weekend's games. And then a 56 from Soccer Wise, a 58 from Verde all day. So we make up minimal ground on those two squads. But maybe even more importantly, we put even more distance between ourselves and Moon Tower, who are now about 80 points down in the spoon race there, just a 33. So we like that here. We are hoping to never, ever take home a spoon in a competition that we created, but still a long way for us to climb. And really the field trying to catch We Are Austin. I think all of us, except Hernan and the boys over there, all of us would take, a 22 from We Are Austin at some point here. Like, let us back in. Let us have some fun and a chance here, because God damn have they been crushing. Like, killed it this year at the draft, man.
Yeah, since week 1, man. They've been absolutely fantastic, and you can tell by how far out ahead they are.
Well, I don't know if you can tell, I'm spending a little bit more time on the Big Ball League because I am dreading coming over to the Patreon pyramid here.
Why?
Come on. Be quiet. Let me get there. Sentimiento League. It is Ari's winning week 10, so he closes the gap on TJ up at the top, now just 39 points after Birdman was out to that gigantic lead through the first number of weeks there. Top 4, Birdman, Aries, Mace, and Kevmo is the top 4 in the Sentimiento League after 10 weeks. We go to the Heartbeat League. AG, after you realized he was in the league, pulls off his first weekly win of 2026 with 63 points, but a fairly high-scoring week overall across all 3 leagues. So top 4 in the Heartbeat. Peach, tie for second between the Statman and Mike Cragnola, and then I'm still holding off Josh there for 4th.
Tight.
And we get to the worst part of the episode. E goes back-to-back, increases his overall lead in the Rooted League up to 579. So the top 4 in the Rooted League now, E, Turbo Trevor, Logan, and Schnorb Jones. And that 579, no, you've been waiting for it, my friend. E now tops in the overall standing. So the top 8 overall teams, right, from our 3 leagues will qualify for the Premier League as we move to a pro-rel structure next season. If the season ended today, the Premier League would be E, Birdman, Turbo Trevor, Peach, Logan, Ari, Statman, and Mike Cragnola, with ZG, the first one out, along with Mace, Schnorb Jones, and Josh. So, E, I know you're loving it. I'm still enjoying the, again, like I said last episode, the up and down nature of this top 12 in the race for the Premier League is super fun every week. It's a lot more fun when I end up in the top 8, but I'm 2 points back. I'll get there.
Yeah, it's a lot more ups for me than downs, so I appreciate it. Logan, watch more soccer, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, man. Anything else for you here before we shut it down?
No, excited to see everyone on Sunday. Let's get 3 points. Have a good time.
I'm with you, man. So we appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 303 of the North End Podcast. We are back on Monday, recapping the first team Sunday night soccer match at Q2, taking on St. Louis City, recapping the second team's Copita Tejas matchup up there at Choctaw Stadium, and of course, talking about everything else that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We'll do the same. We'll see you at the Q on Sunday and back here for another episode on Monday. Till then, he's E. And I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.